up in the sky, the birds, the planes.
Jason J. Lewis, the voice of Superman on Justice League Action. And you're listening to the Krypton Report.
Before we get started with our regular episode, I just had a few things to say. I've been listening to some other podcasts and stuff, and there's been discussion about John Byrne's Man of Steel. And this has been kind of on my mind. As many of you guys know, I also joined my friend Phil Parrish of Capes and Lunatics, and we do the Electric Mullet podcast, where we're reading the comics starting with Man of Steel straight through. We'll get into the 90s and everything like that, and just continuing forward. And so we've been, we just, in that podcast, we just finished where Byrne was leaving the books completely. And I've just been sitting here thinking, I think John Byrne's Man of Steel is... I've never been a huge fan of it because there's a lot of things I don't like that's in it. But I feel like where he placed the character allowed other writers to take it and make it better. And I'm seeing that now in the books that we're reading that follow his run, where they've taken the elements that he put and plotted, and they're using them to make the stories even better and the characters more richer. And I think much like sometimes in film series and things, the person who initiated it gets the credit, and I feel like what's coming good from this run isn't as much from what Byrne was writing, but the people who are writing around him in that continuity. If you're following me and it makes sense. And as far as what Byrne did in the origin, I feel that everything that was good in John Byrne's origin for Superman is, redone later in other origins as well. So, and leaving out a lot of stuff I don't like from it. I just it's been on the brain because we read through it. The biggest thing I think that comes out of John Byrne's Man of Steel origin for Superman really is the Lex character, the businessman, the tycoon type. And I feel like that's carried in other versions. Most notably, we were having a discussion. We have Jeff Johns' Secret Origin, and you have Mark Waid's Birthright, which have really been the kind of big origins for Superman that we have. Now continuity is all, everything matters type thing. But this has just been on my mind. So, all right. Back to the Krypton Report. Check out Electric Mullet. Take care. And welcome to the Krypton Report podcast. I am your host, Tyler, the Superman of Blue, the Man of Tomorrow, and with me is James, the Superman of Red, Mr. Flippin' Cole. And together, we are part of the greatest podcast of all time. Not just playing. We are the All Things Superman and DC Comics podcast, and we welcome everyone to join us. How is everyone doing? Hopefully well. Hopefully better than part of the day that I've had today, but it's life. How are you, Mr. Cole?
Oh, somewhere along the lines of you. Not sure. Well, from what I saw earlier, probably not quite that far.
Yeah,
I've had some knocks on my day, so
we're
I'm
recording
all right.
this a little behind because we had Father's Day, and James and I both are dads, so we kind of were like, hey, we'll record Monday and get it out Monday night because we've been trying to get our podcast out on Mondays. But then last night I was not feeling the best, and James is getting over being sick. And today I was super pumped to record, and then a friend I hadn't talked to in a while, was when I was in college, she was in a car accident and died last night, and it just kind of surreal. She was our age, in her 30s, and a very sweet and very caring person, and she's gone now. So I don't know, it just hits you home. It just hits you hard, and
yeah, sorry to hear that. Condolences to her friends and family.
Yeah, it's just it's tough. It's so I don't know, just been thinking on stuff. So everyone, I just reach out and I tell people, reach out to those you love, people you maybe haven't talked to. Let them know you're thinking about them. Let them know that you still care, and it's never too late to fix anything that's broken. Okay. But with that, we're gonna get into today's podcast. And yeah, we got some cool news. First off, so I don't have all the reference images for this yet. I was trying to, but today, so I'm going to try to pull these up as we go. But today, they are in Ohio. They are currently working on setting parts of Cleveland up to represent Metropolis, which is cool and honoring, of the legacy of Superman that, they're incorporating where Superman was created, which I love, which is, near us. Woot woot.
Mm-hmm.
I actually thought about trying to go up there tomorrow because I do have the day off tomorrow. Thank you, federal holidays. And I'm gonna pull up.
Nice.
But here's the outside of the Daily Planet building as of right now. There's been some other ones, but I just don't have because, like I said, it just broke today. And yeah,
Love that they have that old building revolving door thing that looked
Yeah.
on the front.
I always for me, I always wanted to shoot Metropolis, like do some exterior shots and stuff from Dubai. I always thought Dubai looked like a city of the future. If you look at some of the pictures and stuff, very kind of Metropolis-esque. So I always thought some exterior shots from that would be cool. But hey, they're in our backyard, James, so to speak.
Yeah, that's cool. No, I feel ya. That'd be nice to drive out there, just see what they've got going on out there, even if they're not shooting anything in those areas at the moment. Like, just see what they've got going on.
I know
That would
they
be
have.
so
I know
cool.
they have 2 weeks scheduled for filming in Cleveland, and then like a week to 2 weeks, and then they have 2 days set for Cincinnati. And I already have the days off for Cincinnati, so I might just try to go out there. For
I think that's a little closer, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
Oh, for
closer.
you.
And my good friend lives in Cincinnati, so I can just go crash at his place. If I
Oh,
need
that'd
to.
be cool. Yeah,
But
unfortunately, Cleveland's a couple hours away from me, so
yeah, it's still
like
like almost 3 for me, because I
we
live
need to go
south.
stay. We just need to go stay at a hotel. That's what we
Yeah.
need to do.
So yeah, there's that. But this is interesting. So DC is launching its own official Discord. Yeah, I don't want to be a part of that. There's enough Discord already, just talking to people online as it is. Could you imagine trying to have a chat with that many people on Discord?
Oh
Jeez.
man. Yeah, I don't know about just a single. I mean, I know you can have like all kinds of different like sub categories on Discord and stuff like that on the server. So maybe you could find a chat that you're interested in and chat with the people in there. I mean, that's funny though, Discord. It's just that's all it's been for the last 11 years,
Yep.
So and longer. I mean, heck, you could take that all the way back so far. Like every generation, there are
In every generation
mishandlings,
burns a
of
warrior.
the property, of the
Mhm.
so it's really crazy how that in itself history has repeated itself in such a short amount of time over and over and over again.
So we got
Just
confirmation.
speaking of stuff,
Oh, go for it.
one thing I would just want to interject from my reading. You just talking about Ohio. I'm reading the Nicole Main's Suicide Squad Dream Team countdown to absolute power, and they were just talking about Parthas, the alien community, being in rural Ohio. I was like, awesome, that's sweet.
You're like, yes. You're like, thank you.
feels like Walbridge.
Well, I mean, it's like wasn't Doom Patrol set in Ohio?
Yeah.
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 Yep.
All right. So
New York's got a lot of Marvel people. Ohio's got DC people.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
We know that Penguin is going to be coming out on Max in September. So that's pretty cool. That's like right at the end of the right after summer, kind of. And Creature Commandos will release in December. So that's that's more we're excited about. Good to
Oh
know.
yeah, I'm definitely excited. There's actually a lot of DC content coming out this year. Um, and
It's just
it's begun now with My Adventures of Superman. There's a lot of different things coming out this year for it.
and speaking of My Adventures with Superman, we got
Oh, look at that.
confirmation that season 3 is happening. Woo
Woo.
woo. So I feel like I have my prediction that this season will kind of wrap up and season 3 might be like a time jump or like
Mm.
start a new arc or something, because I feel like they knew they had 2 seasons. They weren't sure. So I feel like the way they've done the show so far, they may have constructed 2 seasons. If that was it, that was it. So I'm thinking that maybe season 3 will be like the start of a new arc or something else, or it could be some craziness going on. Poor James.
Laura came bursting in the room.
And supposedly we might see some characters from Creature Commandos appear in Superman. So we'll see what that exactly means. But we also got news that a Blue Beetle animated series in the works. And so far, it sounds like this animated series is going to be a continuation of the film. So I'm hoping, that we get that. Also, it's worth mentioning right now that we had this past Saturday was our first Superman the Animated Series live watch along. So join us at 9 a.m. Eastern time to watch along every Saturday of an episode of Superman the Animated Series. We'll be watching season 1, episode 2 next. Here are some wonderful podcasts. If you can't get enough of us for Superman, we're sharing this with our fans and listeners. Join these other amazing Superman creators and content makers to get all of your super needs. These are my little plugs for now. And then we ran a poll, and like we talked about that after My Adventures until My Adventures season 3, and after Superman and Lois, we won't have any really live super coverage, to do. So I asked a question: should we do an episode at the end of Superman and Lois's season, or do episode by episode coverage like we've done in the past? And through our short poll here, episode by episode. So we will be doing our continual format. Now, speaking of,
I was gonna say, I was gonna be like, I'm voting for episode by episode, man. Like, what do you mean?
but we got this image today, as we got 4 images for Superman and Lois season 4. One was just Lex's face in a window. One was Kyle's face. One would just said Superman and Lois the final season over some clouds, and then Doomsday. We're still waiting for. It was a part of a big CW fall lineup thing that looked like bullcrap because the CW is nothing anymore. And yeah. Now.
Well, it certainly doesn't have any of the genre shows that
It has the new
drew in the our generation, all the stuff that came. I mean, how many shows in how many different genres? I mean, they had Riverdale, they had Supernatural, all the way back through Smallville and Roswell. I mean, they had, and then all the different vampire shows that did so well and their spin-offs and things. Like, they had years worth of shows that drew people in, and now a lot of people who all of those shows are gone. There's nothing for them to watch anymore.
And I mean, I'm not even watching the CW anymore. There's nothing there, and I'm just gonna buy Superman and Lois like I did, every
me too.
Year.
Yep.
The next big thing is we got our first teaser trailer of the Watchmen animated film. And we learned that part 1 will release in 2024 and part 2 in 2025. And you know what? I'm not really that excited for it. It's the 2D CG animation similar to what they did with Super Sons, which I thought was fine for Super Sons. But I don't know, man. Like, it looks interesting, but I'm just like, do I need this animated movie?
Well, I mean, we've got such a great live action movie that looks so good, that is so good, but also, the TV show that came after it that was a really great successor to really both the movie and the comic, but leaned more towards the comic, and um, they kind of use some of the classic stylings of the character suits in that. I think from the trailer here, that's what we're getting is the classic style of those suits. And maybe we're gonna get uh, an animated version that sticks um, more towards the comic, like the Dark Knight Returns, uh, part 1 and part 2.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see, Um, and then we got one more piece for James to do here, but I'm going to ask some questions real quick. Where we've been reading over at Electric Mullet, I have a question, Mr. Cole.
Yeah.
Do you think that James Gunn might tease a relationship between Jimmy Olsen and Cat Grant for Superman 2025?
Hmm.
Do you think that could be something?
Well, I mean that character relationship, back in the '90s when it was Lois and Clark, he always had a crush on Cat Grant. So it would be that's just evolved over the years, I think. I mean, I would assume that she is an older woman to Jimmy.
She
um,
is, and that's the
yeah,
thing, man.
are they contemporaries in this um in this world?
I'm just saying, I think there's still an age gap, and that's the part of the relationship, like it was in the comics, man. Like she is going hard on him in the comics right now. Like it's an interesting
Well, I
little
know in
thing.
the comics right now he is dating
Well, I'm talking
Silver
about where we're.
Mansion.
I'm talking about now where we're reading
Oh,
at
I'm
Mullet,
sorry. You did say mullet. You did say mullet. That's right.
and I'm just like, um,
That does seem like the age of comics that Gunn is passionate about because that's what he grew up with.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
With the way he pulls characters.
yeah, I'm just saying, and also, other questions for people to think about. Will James Gunn be the first live action um, Superman property to really restore the history of Superboy? Will this Superman have a history of being Superboy before being Superman? Think about
Is that just a random question
Yeah,
you're
these are my
pulling out of
questions.
thin air?
These are
Okay.
my
I was just say,
questions.
what's okay. I was gonna say what's bringing that about.
Just me thinking,
Uh,
being bored
okay,
when driving. Um,
right,
Now with all these
yeah. Well,
castings, my I'm hoping that we still have casting of Dan Turpin and Maggie Sawyer to be cast, rounding out Metropolis. Because I really
right.
feel like
Well,
I need Dan Turpin, Maggie Sawyer, and Bibbo.
so I wanna ask you a question.
Yeah.
Do you want everybody in the Metropolis umbrella in this first movie, or do you want to leave a couple of people that in a sequel, so we're not stuck with one damn Superman movie for an entire
Well,
line of films you want to see sequels and have those characters in them as well.
Well, I want to see sequels and have these characters. Okay. But if this is all, say, we got, I'd like to see some of this, like the world, because this is the second question I bring to you. You probably don't remember. Years ago,
I have a question.
we pitched a bunch of Superman ideas for movies to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I told you my idea would be to do a Superman movie, like for a trilogy. My first movie would be him crashing on Earth, and I would not do anything with Krypton. But my second film would open with the destruction of Krypton and be more sci-fi and Krypton heavy. Now, so far in this production of Superman, we have gotten no Kryptonian casting. So what if Gunn is not even going to touch Krypton, and Jor-El and all that type stuff will be in his sequel? Watch, he'll announce Jor-El tomorrow. Watch. But that's kind of my thinking. What if this is more of a Metropolis-centered film, and we're building the world of Metropolis, and then in the sequel, we build out the sci-fi elements with the Kryptonian lineage. Just thought. This is just me.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that is a possibility. There was the talk about in the beginning, like him being very alien, focusing very much on the Kryptonian side,
Just because I feel like
as well as, but from the very beginning, from the time James Gunn has come on, like there have been a little bit of pullbacks, not like a whole lot or anything, but just a little bit. I mean, we know it's an evolving it's a revolving door, bring it back around, of ideas and things that get thrown in the air and then eventually get shot down a little bit because everything that you write can't be shot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There are certain ideas that are too grandiose to be shot, or at least, the technology needs to be invented to make it possible. That's how that gets pushed forward. But it does take time. I mean, and it's not like James Gunn has Jim Cameron's level of time and money to invest and invent the technology to make what he wants to make.
Right. I got another question for you, and I was thinking about this with this film. I was thinking about, I kind of like the heat vision to go back to being like it was in Smallville and Superman Returns.
Yeah, kind of invisible wave-like.
Yeah, like actually like this, like you can see pulsating heat from his eyes, like maybe the rings or the waves, and kind of move away from like the laser beam look of heat vision.
I mean, I still really can't get over the use of heat vision in the Snyder films. The way heat vision was done there, because it was done at so many varying levels and intensities. I mean, when he was a kid in the closet and he heated up the handle, his eyes glowed red. There was no heat lines, there was no laser vision, and it still heated up and burned. Very similar to how he melted the ice when he was walking through and made his tunnel. But then when he liquefied a 2-ton I-beam girder that was getting swung at him, and he liquefied it in an instant, it was a very intense, heavy beam.
It's true.
So, I mean, with that level of heat, to be able to incinerate a beam, liquefy it in an instant, I mean, it would have to be visible, in my opinion. Just the levels, of it being just heat, and then to a degree that it's incredibly visible like that. I really like that. But, I love Smallville's over the years. I thought it looked really great. And same thing with Superman Returns. It was barely noticeable. Just the heat waves, the light, clear heat lasers that you could see.
Mm-hmm. So I'm just saying, I just feel like, we've had a lot of representation on one side, kind of peeling it back to see another side here. But that's the last thing I have is for Mr. Cole here to tell us about the upcoming DC game that's coming out.
DC Dark Legions.
Yes, sir.
Yes. So it appears to be a mobile game of type, something similar to like Galaxy of Heroes or Marvel Strike Force. It actually might be another step up. It looks like it has a couple of different little modes and mini game types involved with it, but you you get to create your own league built on heroes and villains, to take on who the ultimate bad guy is in that game would be the Batman Who Laughs. And it's got something like the Crisis tuning forks, but in this regard, they're used to like bring the dark multiverse energies to Earth, as opposed to repel the antimatter wave. So, kind of brought in a different way. So, they've released a trailer for it. There's a couple of images. You can see what appears to be like some probably beta testers online playing some of the game, if you want to watch some YouTube videos. But it's supposed to be out later this year. And, mobile games can be fun, if you go to a doctor's appointment, sit down, play a game for a little while or something while you're waiting. Who knows, Those ones you can play quickly, and those ones just play a little bit and put it aside. For people who enjoy gaming like I do, but don't have as much time to sit down on games like like some games require.
Yep.
Unfortunately, it's fun to get in a little bit of time with games like that. And I'm looking forward to a DC game. Something similar to those other two games that I have a good time with.
So that's all I have for news. And now we're going to get into my adventures with Superman. Because this show is awesome. And
everything is awesome.
Everything is awesome. But so the episode is entitled Season 2, Episode 5, Most Eligible Superman. Lois and Clark's relationship is pushed to the breaking point as Superman is named Metropolis' most eligible bachelor, while Jimmy gives a mysterious girl a tour all over Metropolis, a girl on a mission to find her long-lost cousin. All right. This episode was so fun.
Yeah, it was. It was right off the top. Supergirl is dressed like Android 18 from Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah, I saw before they released. What's crazy is if you go online,
very similar.
Right as these episodes are dropping on Max, there's already like a teaser trailer for next week's episode. So like when that teaser for this episode dropped last week, people were already saying that about how Supergirl looked.
Excuse me.
And I only knew about it because of Superman homepage. But I loved that they sucker basically Clark into going
we
for
don't
this.
watch them live on Adult Swim.
Yeah,
we
watch it till next morning.
Sunday on Max.
It's our morning breakfast tradition.
Yeah. Get up, have some coffee, and watch some My Adventures with Superman.
I like how they suckered Superman in / Clark because it's for charity for kids in hospital. And he's like,
I'll do little hologram. It's all the money goes to sick kids. And he was like, oh, and she was like, he's definitely going to be there.
This episode is loaded with so much. You have Lois and Clark's relationship. Lois thinking that Cat Grant's figuring out the relationship.
Yeah, she was so obvious like the whole friggin' time, and Kat was so oblivious, trying to
and,
pick up on all these clues, and she's like right in front of you, just like, yeah.
and just Jimmy trying to make up with Clark but avoiding Clark, and then meeting Kara, and she's like, I gotta find my cousin, or I gotta find somebody, and it's very interesting. Oh,
Yeah,
because I love
there's a lot going on in this episode. I mean, I like in the end when Jimmy's like, I'm sorry I used you to avoid my friend.
yeah, but I love when he's like, oh, you're here to find a guy. She's like, my cousin is like, oh, it's your cousin. All right, okay.
Not a boyfriend. Um, I love that they gave Jimmy and Kara an ice cream moment. Very reminiscent of Steve and Wonder Woman in the movie in the New 52.
Yeah. Okay, so we finally got confirmation that we have fighter pilot and Star Labs astronaut Hank Henshaw. So I told you it was Henshaw. And we finally got confirmation. Now, Shandi Gupta, does that ring any comic bells for you?
No, I'm assuming the other people up there were somebody from the comics, but the only two that I knew was Hank Henshaw and Silver St. Cloud.
Bryna Brilliant.
Yeah.
Berna. And then Silver St. Cloud, they made her tall and thick.
Yeah, the way they had made her, I was wondering who that was. Like, I was like, is she gonna
Barda?
be like
Some,
Amazon
yeah.
or Barda or something like that? But no, it was Silver St. Cloud, and I was like, I was like that Friday meme. Damn.
Yeah. It was like, all right. Like, that's our second Gotham person. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, it was cool, and it was a deep pull, and I like how they made her a billionaire, charitable person. That was really cool because she runs with the rich and everything like that. But just using that in this angle and this eligible bachelor show.
Oh, and she's so into Superman. Like, she is. And the whole fact that, like,
That's
him and Lois,
probably why Hank was so upset.
yeah. And then Hank turns and does the whole, like, Earth is for Earthlings.
Yeah. Hank Henshaw not being a fan of Superman
I know, it's different.
this time around.
I do like that our Jimmy meter came back this episode when he was, like, buying food and snacks and stuff with Kara.
Food's a little expensive in Metropolis, but it didn't crank out like when he bought a limo and
I know,
chartered a jet, and because I don't know many jet charters that'll fly you to the Arctic.
I don't know. He had money, so
Yeah, right.
But
I think you need Luther money for that type of expedition.
But this episode, you have all this working in, like, Lois and Clark have a huge kind of falling out where she's like, it's not working, and she breaks up with him. And they're both talking about, like, she didn't tell him about her job offer, and he didn't tell her about trying to summon Kara. And so, like, that was just,
Well, so the last couple of episodes, they've been pulled apart by various things. I mean, Lois is always chasing her story, and Superman is always the story, and that's how they usually wind up together. But in this route, like she's had trying to find her dad. Um, she had the competitive run against Vicky. So they haven't had a lot of time together, and a lot of time to talk. They've shown them call each other and leave each other messages, but they've missed each other, and so
Mm-hmm.
that puts a strain on a relationship when you can't talk to each other. But also, um, the way that Kat is getting into her head that you have to be superhuman to be with Superman.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and that's kind of the thing with Superman, though, is yeah, he's Superman, but he's Clark.
Yeah.
He's Superman to the world, but to himself, he's still Clark. And he wants to be with the person that he cares about, the person that he loves, and they don't. And she is as superhuman as he needs. She keeps him on his toes.
Yep.
So, I mean, we know that as as longtime fans, and this story's been going on forever. But so yeah, them, and they want to talk to each other, but everything always kind of gets in the way. Like at the very beginning, they're trying to talk to each other, and then Perry drags him into his office. And I love every time they bring in Perry because it's always snap cuts.
Yes.
They're talking to each other, and then bam, they're in his office in the dark, and he's whispering to them. And then bam, Kat's in the window screaming that it's her beat. And then when he says, "You guys are going, Kat's not going," bam, the door closes. Like, I love the way they just like snap cut Perry, like he's the boss. Like he lays down the hammer and boom, slams the door, get out.
Mm-hmm. So they have, like I said, they have their falling out, but before that, I wanted to mention, I totally forgot because my notes got scattered. But we have Kara talking with Jimmy, like you said, where he talks about his, best friend, and she's like, "Jimmy Flamebird, is this best friend now your enemy? I will destroy them."
Your enemy will be my enemy.
Yeah. So
I will make your enemy my enemy, I believe is what she said.
I love this because we're seeing Kara for who she is. We're really seeing who she is. And then like they go to the TV station and she's like overwhelmed by all the craziness.
The lights and the media and
And
madness.
then it dawns on, like, she says something. She's like, "Oh, there's my cousin." And he's like, "Oh."
Right.
And Lois loses it when she sees Silver kiss Superman on the cheek. But she told him to play the role, And then, of course, he runs after her. And then Kara confronts him. And he says, "Sorry, I need to do something." So he runs off, and Kara gets mad because she's been looking for him, and she's angry. And
yeah, like he's supposed to know that she's his cousin, you know?
uh-huh.
Kind of a thing. I mean, I understand she's kind of in a she's being overloaded and overstimulated right now with everything that's going on. But she definitely went from 0 to crazy in like no time flat.
She calls Jimmy a temptation.
And she did, yeah.
This is so one of my predictions kind of came through, man. That the other person we saw at the end of the last season, and then when they talked about Kara, I was like, everyone thought might have been Zod, and no, it's Kara.
That was Kara
dude.
in the suit saying Neil.
Yeah,
yeah,
and she has her bracelet connected to Primus.
who she calls father.
Which is what Brainiac.
So,
So and then we get a big fight between
the
Kara and
Primus.
Superman.
Primus sounds very robotic, but she says father, so I'm not sure that
So
that's
this is my
Zor-El,
theory.
or they can't be Zor-El.
See,
Cyborg Superman, Cyborg Zor-El.
That's one thought. But my other thought is the two rockets we know launched at the same time. They were both kids.
Yeah.
And my thought is he got to Earth and Brainiac caught Karis. And so he's been raising her, taking care of her, feeding her lies about the Kryptonian Empire and everything. So she's very much she's very much brainwashed by his
Right, kind of how Kara spent years with the Monitor in the Tomorrowverse.
Yeah, and when Clark like busts her suit off, and we see her like in her like black and red suit, is awesome.
Yeah, I like that.
So we have Supergirl. We see signs that she's the Kara that we want her to be, because he calls her Scion. Primus calls her Scion.
So that was going to be my question for you. Is we see her and she acts very much like a girl learning some things, who's got a secret, who's carrying a weight or whatever, some naivete because she's an alien, separate from this world, that type of stuff. But when she's speaking to Primus and Primus calls her Scion and says, what do you hesitate? Why do you hesitate? Or, will you obey, or something like that? Her eyes change. If you look at it, her eyes change, like the pupil disappears. I'm not sure if it's like a cataract covering, or like, the lights go out or something and she's being partially controlled, like mind manipulated.
Yeah.
Through part of this, I think she's not just following and being bad, being this Kryptonian Empire thing. I think there's some sort of mind control thing going on with the way that look. Her eyes changed. She dropped her head. I will comply.
Yeah.
And then she goes off and beats Superman's butt.
For the Empire, I'd do anything.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's a nice little twist, of it being Supergirl. And
well, with that suit, because when it like goes on her, it's like massive upper body, like alien structure looking thing.
And she takes Clark, Superman. I mean, it was a good episode. This show never disappoints.
It does not. It is. Honestly, I can say I can watch every single episode through the 15 that we have right now.
Yeah. But all right, so that ends up our discussion on this My Adventures with Superman episode. And now a word from the children.
Hands washed real quick.
Sayla, just tell me, what do you think of My Adventures with Superman's episode?
I was mad. I don't want to spoil it, but I was mad.
You can spoil it, it's okay, because I'll play this after we talk about it.
All right, Kara, aka Supergirl, Brainiac controlling her. For a minute, I thought she was a bad guy. I'm like, man, I didn't want Kara to be a bad guy. I wanted her to be a good guy. But Brainiac raised Kara after the spaceship flew up in outer space. And it landed where Brainiac is. Brainiac was trying to make Kara. But it might be Brainiac, who knows. But yeah. I'm just mad because they made Kara a little bit as a bad guy. But Dad told me to wait until, Anyways, it's Father's Day. Bye, guys.
Solomon, your thoughts?
So the Hank Winshaw, yeah, whatever his name is, but he it set up Cyborg Superman because he's like, oh, I hate Superman, and it kind of set up Cyborg Superman, and Primus, who controls Kara, that's what I think, yeah, we think it's Brainiac. Maybe it's maybe it's her father. It's very hard to say. Also,
her father's dead, so I'm like
Maybe.
maybe.
We'll see.
Also, I have to say, when Kara had to do her heat vision blast, Superman put out the ice. He did the ice breath. I was waiting for that. I was waiting for that moment.
The ice breath is the best breath.
Yep, and so that's my theory about the episode. So bye, guys. And also Jimmy. I think Jimmy's trying to flirt with Kara. But yeah.
He is. He had red cheeks. He had red cheeks, and so is Kara. There's something going on with them too.
Bye, guys.
I am Brian Peters, the creator and host of Gravely Amusing. For the past 30 years, I've studied the history of gods and monsters in pop culture and our world. As a student of theology and history, I've tried to understand evil and its impact on us. As a writer, I've tried to share this knowledge. As a comedian, I've tried to make people laugh as I do it. But as a man-child, I'm still that scared 7-year-old boy. Join me as I share the history of horror and sci-fi, discuss classic and modern pop culture, and share a creepy story or two. This podcast may scare you, it may horrify you, or it may leave you gravely amused. Listen to Gravely Amusing on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and wherever podcasts are found. Follow us on Twitter at gravely_amusing or on TikTok at gravely amusing.
We have a $1 Patreon. Yes, I know everyone asks for money, but our $1 Patreon each month gets you commentary tracks for releasing movies, DC movies. It gets you my requel series where I pitch ideas about movie sequels, prequels, or whatever. It also gets special bonus episodes. So check that out for $1 a month. That's all we ask. Keep it cheap, keep it simple, and help us keep going. Check out the link in the show notes or Patreon, Krypton Report.
This is Dan Jurgens, and if you want to have a good time, keep listening to the Krypton Report.
And we're back. So now it's time for James to sing us a song. Sing us a song, James. But we were covering now Superman, New 52 Superman Volume 3, Fury at World's End is what we're covering now. Let me give you a quick synopsis. Hell has come to Earth. When a mysterious ghost from Krypton's past comes to Metropolis in hopes of finding the lost planet's last son, his arrival comes with disastrous consequences for not just Superman, but Superboy and Supergirl. Hell has decided that Earth is the place to resurrect Krypton, but at the price of everyone's life on the planet. It's all-out war between the villain, Superman, the Justice League, Superboy, Supergirl. But whose side is everyone on? The newest epic begins here in Superman Volume 3, written by Scott Lobdell, with stunning visuals by Kenneth Rocafort. Collection of Superman number 0 and Superman 13 through 19. All right. This is the yeah.
Oh, I was gonna say. So I've read the Hell storyline from all different angles and all the tie-in books.
Yeah,
it's really weird to read this story in just the handful of chapters on the Superman book.
It is, and you know what? I did it on purpose because, like, part of our mission with this reading is: can you read this stuff the way it comes in the trades, or do you need all the tie-ins? you have to read everything. Now the first book here, and so the first comic is issue 0, and it's kind of this. I remember when I bought some of these 0 issues, I wanted more from it than what we got. And it's it's a Jarrell story, and the biggest part about this issue, really for me, was it gave Lara something to do. And we saw how awesome she really is. And we see that Krypton had like these rebels and stuff that were, on the planet and was actually trying to cover up its destruction. But yeah, to me, it was more about Lara.
I mean, yeah, I seen the bits where she actually had something to do in the story. Just from this book. I was only thinking in terms of this book. It's been a few years since I read Hell. So
is that okay? I was going to ask you is how you pronounce it, like Hell or Hell, like Hell, like is it just Hell? Like how do you pronounce it?
I just put it Hell.
Yeah, like the first time, like when it came out, I said Hell, and then I don't know. I've never heard it really said out loud, but
it could be Hell, but
because they do the apostrophe.
Yeah, but as shorthand, when I read it, I just read it as Hell.
Spoiler alert, I think he was a completely underdeveloped character and could have been something really good from this era and been a character that we all kind of talk about as like kind of a new character going forward. But his whole like creation story is like everything else, super over convoluted and not needed.
Right.
But
in the end, we get that he's just like he still made it back to Krypton in the past. But is he dead?
He's stuck like in a cycle. Like it like I said, it's over convoluted and it doesn't make sense like completely. It's like, and he was in a ship.
I was just wondering if you think he could still show up.
I mean,
one day if somebody wanted to do a deep pull and write a story with Hell again.
I think it'd be cool, and you make him like you really like touch on him, and I don't know. Like I hate that we get like he got his name from it stood for House of L. The ship said, and he just took the H and the L. For his namesake, but like we'll get there. Okay, we'll get there because I'm looking at this issue. They will join you in the sun, where he's like I remember reading this book for the first time because technically we are now in this second year of the New 52. Because I think if I remember right, the 0 books were all like at the 1 year mark.
I believe so. I believe that's when the 0 books came out, and the original copyright for the 0, 13 through 17 is 2012 and 2013. So it is full on the second year. We started in 2011.
And I point that out because of something else that happens in this book. But I remember, so this would have been because I had started picking up books around this time. Because I remember reading this one because Clark in this, like at the center of the earth in this machine where he's basically bench pressing the earth's weight. I was like, holy this is like intense.
Yeah.
Like this is some serious super stuff here.
And he barely broke a bead of sweat.
I'm like, okay, this to me is like trying to make him see how powerful he is. So when we get to Mr. Hell here, when he fights Clark, we're trying to say how much more powerful he is.
Yeah.
Because other than that, like this makes Superman completely like nothing's going to stop him. But I was looking at the context of this whole Dr. Veritas. Have we seen her before? Like in any, I don't remember her in any other comics or anything. Do you?
This
Is
is
that
the this is
it's not
the the main place I believe seen her from. I don't recall her too much outside of any Superman New 52.
and she's not the same doctor that was in All Star. No, he was something else, wasn't he? I can't remember his name.
That was it was not Dr. Veritas.
Yeah, I just
Veritas
can't.
is a name a Superman fan remembers.
Yeah, for real. Truth.
Especially our generation, right?
But I did like just a little bit. Like Geneva was looking over my shoulder when I was reading this. She was laying in bed reading it, and she was like, "Oh, what's going on with his suit?" Because we had a couple of panels of like the suit retracting into the chest emblem, and she's looking at Dr. Veritas like, okay, who's this? What's this?" Oh my gosh, dude. I am so tired of this DC Universe Infinite trying to use it from a web page. Like it just keeps resetting
Oh no.
itself.
Um, yeah, I've used it a couple of times on the computer, and it's only when we were recording. I've never actually sat down and used my computer to read.
But
I
see,
mean, I
I
actually
did
may have once or twice, but like neither here nor there. It's something
I
I don't
did last year when I part of spoil when I was subbing, full time, and I would do study halls, and a lot of study halls was just to read. I would pull up on my laptop and
do.
read from
Absolutely.
because we were all reading, and that's all I had access to, really.
Absolutely. And if I could, I mean, God forbid, knock on wood, something doesn't happen to my tablet. But if that happened, I'd have to read off of my computer more because it'd be my phone and my computer.
So we have Superman, return to the Daily Planet, and there's confrontation going on there. And I can't really pull the panels up because my computer reset. But we see that a Kryptonian dragon is attacking a building, and Clark goes to fight it, and it's coming undone. And Kara, Supergirl, shows up, and we get the final page is Superman yelling with Supergirl, who they have an interesting relationship at this point. And then there's Hell in the background, and I just don't like his look. And I don't know if it's trying to invoke that he actually is a member of the House of L, or if they had actually made him something more of a House of L, like if they had made his character where maybe Jor-El was trying to clone himself or trying to make like a quote unquote test tube baby because they couldn't conceive naturally or something, and given him more of an origin story like that could have made more sense.
Certainly would make more sense with the brother angle he tries to play with Clark.
Right. And the fact that we know that the bio suit reads your DNA because his pants looks like he's wearing Clark's cape as like a waist cape, and then he has pants and boots
like tying his
Clark's.
flannel around his waist.
Yeah. But the next issue, I really like the next issue, the way it starts a lot, because it's the one where it ties into an issue of Supergirl, because I did read those. You can read the whole series, but just reading it you have Clark seeing Lois at the door through his X-ray vision. He describes her and talks about her. And this really feels like they're getting the Clark and Lois relationship better than what we've discussed before. How it felt disconnected. But then Supergirl shows up, and Lois thinks it's a cosplayer. And it's just an interesting dynamic. And then Supergirl and Superman are talking, and then Hell shows up and tries to reveal himself. And he's all busted up and scarred. And he talks about being exposed to more volatile radiation and damage being in space. But then we get the twist where he pulls out the con. And this is, our introduction to Superboy in the New 52. And what are your feelings on the Superboy New 52?
pause 1 second. I want to pose to you that issue 0 suit.
Okay. So before I hold that thought real quick, I want to say I feel like this one thing because I got my browser working better. I feel very angsty with Clark, like in just his attitude, like what he's putting up with Morgan Edge at the Daily Planet. He just seems out of place everywhere he goes. It's interesting. He's much more a little more aggressive. And I say that because I'm planting seeds for when we get to action and then later on. But what are your thoughts on the new 52 Superboy?
Superboy?
Yeah.
So I don't remember a whole lot of the Superboy run outside of the events that he
Mm-hmm.
was involved in from the New 52. I thought the suit was kind of cool, but uh he was like, yeah, he was very um angsty and um
I
like
just didn't like
angry.
I didn't like the whole idea that like they called him the Khan, and it meant like clone, and like clones were a whole thing on Krypton, and
Or
they eventually
Abomination.
rebelled, and they talked about like the clones pass. I just thought that was just too much.
So the I don't know. I mean, like, yeah, the idea of clones and stuff, Khan being Abomination, I believe,
Yeah,
it was, and it was an interesting idea of the history. I mean, I guess if you consider that Krypton, uh, was this scientifically advanced civilization for how many tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of years before the planet was destroyed. I think at some point along the lines they probably would have tried cloning. Um, they did talk about them being spacefaring people and that they had outlawed it.
there's just
Um,
I don't know. I just
so,
feel like Superboy to me
but
feels like a
the
character they could have waited on in the new 52
yeah.
and not had, because I feel like they're trying to be a version of Connor, but it just I don't know, it just doesn't come off right. I just That's one of those characters I just because even like I remember later on they do something where they get rid of this new 52 Superboy and another Superboy, like I'm trying to remember, replaces him before we even get to Rebirth. Like it's weird.
Well,
But
so it's yeah, it's interesting. I'd have to see how Superboy's story lines up going through the New 52 and through Rebirth,
he
the
disappears.
way it was. Because
He
yeah,
disappears.
does he?
Yeah, because like something happens to this new 52 version of Superboy. He disappears because then we get to Rebirth and it's John Kent, and then we get Connor who was stuck in Gym
In
World
Gem World, and he was more
returns.
like the 90s
Yeah.
uh Superboy.
Yeah, and that's who we have now.
Yeah.
And I'm be honest, I've said this over and over. I hate the tactile telekinesis. Like I just don't like that as a power. I don't like it as a Kryptonian power. If it's its own thing, it's fine. But I just think that
Well,
I
I don't
always
know that it's a Kryptonian power. It's a hybrid power.
that's and I'm
Um,
just saying like I just don't like it.
the one thing that I did like, and maybe this is why I liked the cloning aspect a little bit more, at least the way it was utilized here, was the fact that when they were talking about clones, they were talking about how they were violent and rage filled and things like that. And that's what happened when they tried cloning Superman's DNA. Is it was rage filled and everything. So the idea that even Kryptonians couldn't clone themselves, like their biology doesn't
Hmm.
lend to cloning, that they become like these monsters, like these rage filled just creature like people, because they're not like
Hmm.
people. Um but on Earth, merging the human and Kryptonian DNA is what actually made it stable and viable to be able to do so.
See,
So
I
it was
mean,
something interesting, something new they would never have thought of or could never have thought of because they were one race Kryptonian. They didn't have access to humans and DNA, and their cloning days were long behind them.
you're right. I mean, it's
Yeah.
a good statement. Now, as we see in this issue, Hell is able to make himself appear to Kara as Cal, and he basically says a bunch of crap to drive Kara against Cal. And then we see Hell has different powers, and they talk about him, influencing Superboy's TK. He basically put Superboy like in the hospital, of like crushing him so bad. And now my page just reset. Son of
It, yeah, I don't know if it was here or if it's in a in between issue, but he talks about how he tried to rip him in two, rip
Mhm.
his genetic material in half, separate the human and the Kryptonian, trying to kill to like destroy him.
So the next issue is the first issue of Superman that has Lex Luthor in it. It's entitled Because I'm a Scorpion. And it has Superman now wearing his t-shirt and pants look again, but not the farmer pants like he did in action with his cape, while Superboy is healing wearing the Kryptonian armor. And they go to see Lex Luthor. And like I said, this is the interesting for we're in the think about we're in the second year now, and this is the first time Superman is meeting Lex Luthor. Now, like I said, once we get caught up on Superman to a certain point, we're going to start doing action, and we'll talk about that.
Yeah,
Um,
ideally, it's not till the third arc of Superman in
yeah,
this run before we even see Lex Luthor. And at this point, he's in prison. And the really interesting thing is like, this is how we're going to show you and tell you that Lex is super evil and super brilliant, is because I don't know if they arrested him or whatever, but he appealed to his vanity saying, design a prison that you couldn't even escape. And then they imprison him in that. So
yeah.
is he there voluntarily and he
Well,
can
I mean,
escape or what? I
like I
can't.
said, we go back. It's in action, and that's why I'm saying like I feel like some of this works and some of it doesn't, because I feel like reading this
Yeah, not
story,
reading them separately almost. Because
reading
definitely the
this,
way it jumps the time difference in the stories.
reading just volume 3, I feel like I get the story, but you have to make a lot of inferences, like about certain things. For example, it's in the one of the tie-in issues of either Superboy, where he, Clark takes off the armor, and when it touches Superboy, it turns, to the House of El, and he knows that's why he has part of his DNA in him.
Mm,
But that's not in here. And then the Justice League show up,
right.
and then
And
we
then
have
there's the part where Hell gets into and locks him out of the fortress, which is probably I think in Supergirl,
it
but
is,
not in this.
and then we have the issue A Fistful of Sticks, which is supposed to it's Hell telling his story and about him and Jarrell, and he's telling to Supergirl, and she's basically like, I don't remember any of this. How would I have not known? How would this have never come up? And it's them basically busting back into the fortress, and it's the Justice League with them, and we learn that Hell has basically made a machine that will take him back to Krypton before it's destroyed, but it'll destroy Earth. And he's willing to sacrifice all of Earth. And then it gets even more convoluted, um, because we go into the far reaches of space with the crew of the starship as they pass by the giant what are these things called again? Like
Oracle.
monolith. Yeah, Oracle. And I'm just like, okay. And that's where we get our title At Fury at World's End.
It
And
is.
it's
It is like you said, like a monolith, but it's just like
yes.
this sentient monolith that floats through space and uh, basically bears witness to the end of worlds. I don't
And
know.
I'm just we see and we see Dr. Veritas and we see hell and we it's revealed to more of the truth is revealed to Supergirl what's going on and how he lied to her. And basically she grabs a piece of kryptonite, hides it, and stabs him in the heart with kryptonite. And Clark grabs Kara and's holding her and goes flying with her as the epilogue hell is transported back in the past. And that's the conclusion. And my question to you, Mr. Cole, is do you feel like you got a story out of this without the tie-ins? Or do we need the tie-ins to really feel like we got this story? Because this trade was part of, a larger arc.
I feel that the story is lacking. You can feel it, you can see it. There's a lot of gaps there. You do need the other books as for the tie-ins. Because I don't even feel that this was the main issues of the House of uh or the Hell book.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't even feel like these are like I feel like these are also tie-in issues.
Mm.
You
Mm.
know, it's weird because like sometimes events have their own books where it's book 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 or whatever, and it has its own main line book where you get the majority of the story right there, and you can read just those 6 issues.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are other events, um, kind of like the countdown to absolute power going on right now, kind of like the House of Brainiac going on right now, where part 1 is in this book, part 2 is in this book, part 3 is in this book, part 4. And, together they build the event. Like
Mm-hmm.
they're all essential books to build the event. Whereas, and I feel that's how this Hell story is, where you need an issue of Superman, you need the issue of Supergirl, you need the issue of Superboy to give you um your complete story, because they're part of the main beef of that story. That uh, and I feel like that's just how this story is built, very similar to, like I said, like where the events are created from these books, and it's not just one.
Yeah.
It's not the book is its own event book, and then you have the tie-in stories that you can leave out. I feel like this is one of those stories where the event requires the other books.
I agree. And
It's
I feel
almost
like
like if you bought these trades, I'm sorry, if I almost feel like if you bought these trades, you could leave out volume 3 and whatever volume of the other books
I think they
and
have it
buy
lined up.
the Hell book and
Yeah.
have
It's
them all together. So you wouldn't have that trade of, like, say, part 3 of Superman, because all the issues would be in the Hell book. You'd have that event lodged in the
yep.
center.
Because I think it lines up. It's volume 3 across those titles. So volume 3 Supergirl, volume 3 Superman, and volume 3 Superboy are all the Hell stories.
Well, because I know Superman Doomed is the exact same way.
And we're going to be doing Doomed here soon.
I have
and we're
the
going to do
full
it.
book. I have the full
That's how
trade.
we're going to do Doomed.
Okay, because I don't want to do Doomed like this.
No. This, like I said, part of this reading is an experiment into
Oh no,
the
that's
writing.
okay.
So, but yeah, we will be doing Doomed here soon with a special guest. But
Ooh,
that's
cool.
it for now, guys. Alora's calling James, life's calling me, and hell's on earth. So remember,
Look up in the sky.
We want to thank you for checking out the Krypton Report podcast, and we ask you to check us out on all of our social media, on Twitter X, Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, Hive, Threads, YouTube. We're everywhere. And if you want to be a guest on the podcast, just send us a message and let us know.
If you are like Tyler and James and can't get enough super talk, check out these other podcasts. Digging for Kryptonite, Supergirl Radio, The Last Sons of Krypton, The Superboy Legacy Podcast, All-Star Superfans, Superman the Animated Podcast, The Aspiring Kryptonians, Always Hold On to Smallville, The Geek of Steel, and Truth, Justice, and Hope